This is the TicWatch Pro 4G. It's a £250 smartwatch that I've been using for the past month. As someone who hasn't used the original TicWatch Pro, or in fact any other Android smartwatch at all, here's what I have to say about it. So first off, mob voice style choice for this smartwatch is a little bit confusing. You've got a silicone fitness strap mixed with a chunky plastic body and the high-end style bezel design. It doesn't look bad by any means, but it's not particularly stylish either. Now I get that it's supposed to be an all-purpose watch, but it would have been better to me if they chose one style rather than combining 3 or 4 together as they clearly have. And I feel like every problem that I have with this watch stems from mob voice's inability to make a clear choice with each aspect of this watch. With the 2 buttons on the right side and the touch display, there's clear room for improvement here, as I'd expected the textured top button to have a rotating crown, but it doesn't. So you have to use the more fiddly method of scrolling with your finger on the display. What I really like is that the buttons can serve multiple functions. For example, the top button acts as the power, app menu and Google Assistant button, and the bottom one can be customized to open any WearOS app when pressed down, or as the hardware menu when held. Personally, I have it set to open the settings menu when pressed once, which is more convenient than the UI option of scrolling and tapping. The display on this watch is actually pretty good. It's a 1.39-inch AMOLED with a 400 by 400 resolution. It might not be the sharpest of displays, but I have really enjoyed using it so far. The default brightness settings are, at least for me, always darker than I want them to be. But then it's inconvenient to change it to a fixed brightness because it becomes either too bright in dark situations or too dark in bright situations. So it is a bit of a non-issue, it's more of me thinking what I would change, but in my experience the auto brightness mode is just a little bit too dark. There's actually a second display as well. It's only really a part of the essentials mode of this smartwatch, but it's really useful if you need to save the battery. As stock, this is what the watch shows when it's off, but personally I prefer having the always on display to keep a bit of consistency through my use. And although it'll only last about a day and a half with the always on display, it does look great for it. Now I'm going to be picky here, but the animation from the always on display to the regular on display is honestly just a bit jarring and kind of disgusting to look at. It sort of lags and flashes a little bit, which could really do with a bit of refinement. And with the stock face, which I use the most, there's quite a few changes that take place between the display modes, which makes it feel quite disorganized. I'm a big fan of the Customizable Tiles window, where you can choose between any screen from installed apps, such as weather, news, or fitness, and the customization potential here is really great. Google Assistant is to the left of the watch face, and it's possibly the best part of this watch. I love being able to use Google Assistant without my phone, and although it does struggle to pick up my voice sometimes, for the most part it's worked great. You even get a daily quote within the assistant window, which I absolutely love. Notification handling is also one of the great parts of this watch. The haptics feel solid, and your ability to reply with handwriting, speech to text, or the world's smallest keyboard gives you a pretty decent ability to reply to text and other notifications from directly on the watch. And if you want to go all out, you can link your eSIM to this watch, but you need to be on Vodafone to do it. As much as this is cool, the fact that it's only linked to Vodafone right now is a bit disappointing, and it sort of makes it a bit obsolete because Vodafone being the worst rated network in the UK, just seems... who wants that? The included watch faces are okay, but what bugs me is that they all have a greyish background of some type, which not only means worse battery performance, but it also doesn't look anywhere near as good in the dark. Take the default face called Elegant, for example. With the OLED display, why not make more use of it? With the always on display mode, this face looks brilliant. In fact, it looks exactly as I want it to look. But when you have the display on, the grey vignette and frankly unnecessary details on the hands just look antiquated. You may think I'm being picky, but this is one of the highest end price ranges of an Android smartwatch, and you're essentially 2/3 of the way to the price range of an Apple Watch, so that's why I'm picking out things like this. If you consider what you get with an Apple Watch, all of the faces and the actual good use of an OLED display, the two don't even compare, and this is coming from someone who doesn't use Apple products every day. One of the biggest benefits of WearOS is the ability to download your own watch faces from the nearly infinite supply of the Google Play Store. And this is where I found a solution to most of the problems with the default faces. Apps like Facer give you an easy solution with some brilliant faces available, although the lag that I've experienced with some of these faces does sort of outweigh the benefits of it. Apps such as Carbon Neon give you the minimal watch faces I was looking for. No unnecessary backgrounds, customization of the colours and a sleek look, and it's free. But even with a nicer looking face, the change from the always on display to the actually on display still looks absolutely awful. The biggest change from the original TicWatch Pro 4G to this model is the increase in RAM. With 1GB of RAM inside, the performance will definitely be better going into the long term, and although it's not perfect, it is good. I wasn't expecting the performance to be as consistent as it is, but I am impressed so far with its consistency. There are occasional frame rate drops, and I have had a few apps take way too long to open before a workout. Is the performance amazing? No, but is it decent enough? Probably yeah. You see, WearOS suffers from the same problems compared to the Apple Watch that Windows does when compared to macOS. WearOS isn't made around the hardware, so you're not making full and proper use of the hardware available. Furthermore, the apps made by TicWatch are pretty far removed from those of Google that come pre-installed. This makes the whole thing seem a little bit too confused in itself, and it's like you're using a hybrid, like a Realme phone with ColorOS with the stock Google apps. Things just seem a bit disjointed. This, frankly confusing decision also carries through to the phone side of using the watch. The WearOS app is everything you'd expect from a smartwatch app. It's all of your basic settings and things to manage for the watch, like the installed faces or the tile organization from every screen. It's the place where you can manage every setting for the watch as you'd expect. But to view fitness goals, things get a little bit more complicated. You'd have to use the Google Fit app, and it has to be on exactly the same Google account as the watches, or you can use the Mobvoi app, which is quite frankly terrible. On the watch, it's okay to use, but I'd still use Google Fit. But when you get to your phone, the Mobvoi app is really just an unpleasant experience from the start. You don't get any useful settings or useful features, it'll just display your steps and show you their online store. What's weird about this is that the Tic Health app is actually pretty decent on the watch itself. What deepens this confusion is the fact that there's a second workouts app from TicWatch, as well as the Google Fit workouts app, and they both offer completely different workouts. Google Fit doesn't give a tracking option for swimming, but Tic Exercise does, so I use that instead, and the data is pretty accurate, which is good, but the fact that there's two different apps, one offering some and one offering some more, but neither offering exactly the same, is just frankly ridiculous. With the TicWatch Pro 4G, you've got a pretty disjointed smartwatch that, even through the customization ability, cannot meet my expectations for a smartwatch that costs £250. There's a lot of good stuff here, and if you're willing to move past the shortcomings, then you'll love it. But for me, I can't recommend this watch to anyone at the price point that they're charging, when there's many other alternatives from brands such as Skagen, which is one of my favourite analog watch companies, or Fossil with their highly recommended Sport or Gen 5 watches. Even TicWatch's own E2 smartwatch, at a price point of £145, ranks second in TechRadar's best WearOS Watches Roundup. What TicWatch are offering here is, simply put, unfinished and overpriced.